Hey there, Jono here, and welcome to the installation video for the GPStar 2 Wand Edition. Since the GPStar 2 is very similar to the GPStar 1 in terms of installation, most of this video will be same footage as I used before, and I only make changes to the parts that pertain to the actual GPStar 2 parts. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is open this up. In order to do that, we need to access the screws that are inside and hidden by 4 pegs here on the bottom of the gun track. The method I like to do is to just dig a hole in the middle. You can use some snippers like I am. Just enough to get a little bit exposed. Grab a small self-tapping screw. Screw it in. Take some pliers and wiggle back and forth and yank it out. Now, depending what wand you have, some of them are glued in quite a bit, so they might not come out as cleanly. So I'm gonna try that again, and then the rest come out pretty easily. I believe some of the newer version wands at the time of making this video have much stronger glue inside. Some of the older versions aren't glued in as much. And yes, you can take a drill to drill a hole instead, but make sure you don't go too deep. You don't want to strip the screw that's underneath. This one came out nice and clean. You just need to wiggle it back and forth as you're pulling up a little bit. There you go, all done. You'll probably have some debris or glue still stuck in the edges in the holes. So you're just gonna take a tool of some sort and just clean it out a little bit. Then take your screwdriver and go ahead and unscrew them out. If you end up having the screws not be able to pop out because of some of the debris that's still on the edges keeping it in, that's okay. You can leave them in there. It's not a big deal. So for me, I only got 2 of these out. I'm gonna put them in here, and yeah, I'm gonna leave those 2 in there. It's okay. Let's put this aside. Now back to the wand. There's another 4 screws you're gonna need to remove. For 3 of these, you'll probably need a longer screwdriver. This screw here is longer than the other ones, so it's going to take longer to remove. So open this up and flip it over. Okay, now that we have access inside, make sure your wand is extended. Now go ahead and grab some masking tape or whatever tape. You're going to want to rip off a piece and tape down your speakers because it will fall off. Turn your attention to the back of the handle. Unscrew the screw here. Remove the cap. Make sure that your battery tray is out and tossed aside. Now that we're inside, take a screwdriver and go ahead and remove this part right here. And lift up the spring. That will give you access to the screw here. Take that off as well. And then you can just take this off and put it aside. Okay, next we're gonna work on the main board here. First, let's just break off this peg here. You don't need these. And then remove the 4 screws holding down this main board. And now we're going to carefully remove these connectors. You'll find simply pulling them out it's quite difficult, and you definitely don't want to just yank on these wires because you don't want to break these off and go crying afterward. So what I suggest you do is take some fine tweezers and you want to wedge it in where the connecting tabs are, like that. And you center it, and then see if you can gently pull it out then. So that it's a little difficult, but as you see, take a look. I was able to remove it partially, so I think I should be able to just pull it out now without the tweezers. So you want to try to always pull from the housing, not the wires. There you go. You want to just snip this cable tie here. So for this one, same thing. I'm just going to put some pliers in, pry it up. And just wiggle it out. Oh man, that one was tough. That one was tough. Flipping it over. Okay, there you go. Anything else? Oh, that's it. Just those three. Now to remove the rest of these wires, while this kit doesn't have any soldering involved, we do highly recommend you use a soldering iron to desolder these. Much easier, much cleaner. And I'll demonstrate that soon, but if you really insist on not doing that method, then you can take some scissors. I already did that one. You just need to go in there and snip them off at the ends. And then if you do have, you know, wire stripper, this is 26 gauge, you can go in there and strip it. Or if you don't and you really do insist on doing this method, just take your scissors and lightly apply a bit of pressure and turn around until you snip off the covers a little bit and then just pull up. There you go. Give it a little twist of the exposed wire and that's it. But like I said, using a soldering iron, much easier. Any cheap soldering iron will do. Just need to heat it up and touch the back of one of the wires. And as you see it melt, you just pull with your other hand. There you go. Much easier, much cleaner. And then you're just going to do it for all of them. It would be easier if you can get the helping hands of a human being to hold this for you. But if you don't have anyone, then you can get the helping hands of these helping hands. And please go slow and don't burn yourself. And there you go, all done. Now bid farewell to your old Hasbro board and say hello to the new shiny GPStar board. Oh wait, not yet. We still have a lot more prepping to do. All right, now that you finished desoldering and feel like an electronics expert, we're gonna go ahead and go to the next manly thing and take a screwdriver to do some drilling. What we need to do is access this area back here. And in order to do that first, we need to move this cable out of the way. And you're gonna do that by taking some tweezers. And what we're gonna do is slide it out in between this little tiny area right here. So take your wire and you're gonna try to flatten it out as possible to make it fit. So you're gonna push down and I'm flattening it out against the wall and you're just gonna slowly shimmy it through. What I find helps is to give it more slack by pushing this down as much as you can and then shimmying it through. Okay, yep, and almost got it. Okay, there we go. Nothing fancy about it. It just took some persistence, and it helps to have various thin types of tools. If you make a mistake, you can try to pull it back and go do it again. Like I said, when I had to push down and give it a lot of slack, that definitely did help. Okay, so when you take your drill, and you're going to want to take a small drill bit first. We're going to drill a pilot hole here. See if I can move in with some better light. As you can see here, this little section right here, this is actually part of the handle right there. So we need to access that. So the two things you need to worry about mostly when you're drilling here is that you want to get as close to the right side as possible. You don't want to go over here to the left. And you want to make sure you're going in at a 45-degree angle, not straight down. It has to be 45. And then move up to a bigger drill bit. And then take your wires here and just do a test to make sure it goes through. And if it does feed through, you can just go ahead and put these in one at a time. Okay, so it comes out the other end, so we're good to go. And you know what? While we're back here, we might as well finish this end and get this closed up. So go ahead and take this Neutrona connector here, the screw that comes with it. And you're going to be using one of these three connectors here. When these wands were produced, there were different starting points for these threads that you see here. So we made three of these that should correspond to each version of the wand. So just try each of them out until you get one where the hole is lined up along the bottom. Then grab your Neutrona connector, and starting with one positive, we're going to stick in the red wire and screw it in tight. Give it a tug. Double check that is actually clamped down on the exposed part and not the cable cover. Next, one negative. That will be the black wire. And then two positive, and that will be the yellow wire. And last, the two negative, and that will be the blue wire. And then put it in with the hole lined up with the bottom. Stick in your connector. And then what you can do is, as you're threading this, you can just hold the middle part still with some pliers. And once you have that lined up, you can take your screw with an Allen key and just screw that in. All done. And one last thing to prep, there are 3 sets of black and red wires, 3 pairs. One of these pairs are not necessary. So how we find out which one is you take one of them, like so this one here. These two are attached. Give it a bit of a tug and see where it leads. So this one, if you look into the back here, you see it moving. That is the rumble motor. So we do need this one. So put that one aside. And the next one is over here. Also, these two are also attached to each other. And giving it a tug, you'll see down here that this one moves. This is the slow blow LED. So we do need that one. And then so the last one are these two over here that are not attached. These are connected to the battery tray in the rear handle here. So this one, we don't need it. You can actually just cut these off. Yeah, you'll never touch them again. But if you're uncomfortable with that, just at least tape them up. And then just shove them deep into the recesses of your wand and never touch them again. Okay, so we have so far prepared everything ready for an install if we were just doing the essential stuff, the essential kit of the GPStar one. But you're not here for that. You're here for the more advanced mods. So the first thing we're going to need to do for that is take off the speaker here, put this aside, and we're going to make a bit more room. This is in the way, so let's go ahead and pop the spring up and then remove the screw that's underneath, and then just lift this off the barrel, up and over. Oh, whoops, sorry. Yeah, take this off. Looks like this is glued down, the Hatlight wire. So it's glued down right in here. So just take some tweezers and break off the glue that's holding it down. Okay. And then now you can lift this off. Okay, now just to give us a bit more room, if you're installing the Hatlight kit, you're eventually going to need to cut this off. So why don't we just go ahead and do that now. If you're not installing the Hatlight kit, do not cut off this fake wire thing here. Just skip this step. But I'm going to make my life easier, and I'm going to snip it off right now. So right here, it's just goes through the hole. It's just this rubber plug thing that's attached. So you got to snip that off. Careful not to break these two posts. These are essential posts. We need those. And that just pops right off. So you can just put this aside for later. We'll be right back to it. I know we're installing the Hatlights here and the button, but I prefer to focus on the body first, and then we'll get to this later on. Next, we will need to remove this cover. Same thing as we did when we open up the wand. Got to drill into these two holes and use a screw to pry it open. Oh boy, that took me, I think, a full minute or more. That one was glued in really, really strong. I hope you guys have better luck than I did. Oh, thank God. This one was like a billion times easier. Word of warning, I did not follow my advice. I screwed in the screw a little too deep. I think I did strip the screws head a little bit. Luckily, it looks like I'm still able to remove it. So please keep an eye out for that. And I do have some extra screws, so I'll just replace these ones. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. It is a little stripped. My bad. Okay, for the next step, grab this long barrel cover, that's called. We're going to need to do some snipping. And where you're going to snip is if you place this around here, where the 2 feet go into the screw pegs. You're going to see we're going to have to cut off everything underneath. So you're going to have to cut off all this plastic that's under here. Oh, be sure to push the wires aside. Don't accidentally snip those off. Okay, so that is what it looks like when you cut everything off. And this will later sit in here like so as a replacement. All right, so continue on. I'm going to be doing the vent, Hatlight, and Bargraph mod all at the same time, just because they all kind of work together and the things I need to do kind of cross over each other. So if you only have some of those mods and not all three, just do your best to follow along and skip the parts that don't pertain. And I'll try to inform you along the way which one pertains to what. Let's go ahead and remove the vent light here. That just comes off really easily. Next, let's remove the Bargraph cover. Just 2 screws. And that just comes right off. And then the Bargraph should just pop off as well. The Bargraph LED. Yep, so that just comes right off. What's next? Oh, okay, so let's take off the screw right here that's holding down the retraction switch. Next, with that off, you can pull out this retraction switch and put this aside. We'll be needing it again later. Be careful about the slow glow LED. These wires are very fragile. Okay, so now we're going to take off this clear piece here. This is all one connected piece. This vent light cover and the Bargraph cover is all one big piece. Start off with this screw here. Make a note of it that this screw here is a shorter one than the other ones. Then this one over here. Make a note of this one, also short. Third one is back here. Short. And then the last one is all the way back in there. And this one's gonna be a little tricky to reach because you're gonna have to unscrew this at an angle. So you're gonna need a longer screwdriver. Nope, that's not working. I'm gonna try this one. Okay, yeah, this one is working. It's a little tricky, but eventually it will come out. Short. Oh, I almost forgot. This piece is annoyingly glued down to the side there, so you're gonna have to just try to break off this glue. Otherwise, it won't come out. Yeah, there you go. It doesn't take much. It's not glued down too much. Actually, I don't know if this one's glued down. It might just been away, but I know I had some wands that they were for sure glued down to that spot there. So it doesn't hurt to just break that off a little bit. Now take this off. Again, be careful with this LED. There you go. And then you're going to need these 3 pieces. There's clear clip light and a red clip light that's not shown because I don't have one right now at the time of recording. So first thing you do, take these pieces here. Because the way these 3D printed parts are printed, I do something called a sacrificial layer, and sometimes you might see some filament where the holes are, and you just need to stick your screwdriver in just to clear it if it's not. If you see the instructions, these ones are already pre-cleared. All right, moving on, we're going to install the Hatlight. For this, you're going to need to do some drilling with a 2464 drill bit. This is the perfect size for the Hatlights that we provide. Luckily for us, there's already a hole there that can serve as a guide for our drill, so we don't need to drill a pilot hole. So yeah, let's go ahead and get drilling. As you can see, that just drills the top part out. And yep, there you go. Nice and clean. Very easy to do. All right, so next, let's grab our Hatlight kit. And we're just going to deal with the top body one right now. So the Hatlight that I have for this body here is the Afterlife / Superhero version. So we're going to need that one, the spacer, and the yellow LED wire. So for the Superhero Afterlife, make sure it's this tall Hatlight that we're using, not the other orange one that goes to the barrel wing. The other options that we sell is the Stans Venkman Hatlight. It's the same thing, but white. And then the Spangler one, which is a white one that goes on top. And I'm sorry, I don't have one here to show you, but there's also a connector piece that goes in underneath that connects to this one as it sits on top of the body. For that connector piece, it's installed the same way as these Hatlights. So I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate with this one here. So you're wondering why there's a space there. It's because in case you're only getting the hat light and not like a Bargraph mod or the vent light or whatever, imagine that this vent piece was still completely on. That would make this area a little bit thicker. And then so this hat light would just go straight on if you had the full cover still on. But because we took this off, we didn't make up for that extra thickness by putting on the spacer so that it doesn't stick out too far. Okay, so because I know for sure that I'm not using a vent cover and these two pieces are basically gonna need to be one piece, I'm just gonna add a very tiny dab of super glue and permanently glue these together. Okay, now that that's glued together, actually I was planning to go ahead and install the hat light right away, but change of plans. I think I'm gonna go ahead and install these other pieces first. I'll explain why in a little bit. So first one, grab this piece, grab your clear clip light, and that snaps into this hole here. And then this just drops into the hole here. Flip over, double check. Take the short screw. Next, let's install this piece here. Short screw. And this piece drops in over here. Short screw. Okay, and then flip it over and stick in the red clip light. This one just pops in and snaps right into the body. Okay, and then now let's go ahead and hot glue the LED in. Okay, and once it's dry, let's drop the hat light in. Make sure that it's flush. I'm gonna set this on top of the other side of the body so that it's not pushing against the table. This wire can move it and pull it out of its flushness, so make sure it's in a position where the LED wire isn't going to be bothering it. Okay, and when that's done, do your best to aim and drop a bit of hot glue on it to secure it to the wand. Yeah, I'm actually going to drop a little bit more on the left side. And while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to let you know, honestly, it's easier to just super glue the hat light into the wand body than using hot glue. All right, now that you're done with the hat light, that's actually probably the least fun part of the body. So we got that out of the way. The rest is pretty easy peasy. Next, let's replace this clipper light here. And then just pop that up. Grab your replacement, drop that in. You need to push this one in. It is a bit of a tight fit. Double check on this side to see if it's okay. And then you go ahead and screw it back on. And then screw the LED back on. All right, shifting gears a bit. We're gonna move on to something easier now. It didn't used to be easier. It used to be difficult to install, and that is the Bargraph. Reason being is that the previous version was it was a little difficult to install with the old design. I know a lot of people had a lot of difficulties, but I have redesigned that piece, and now we have a new 3-piece Bargraph. And this basically fixes all the problems of the old one. It's much more secure, less prone to breaking, and it's a lot stronger. So to install the Bargraph, it doesn't really matter the orientation technically, because you can always change the direction in the settings. But by default, the firmware is set to have it being installed this way with the cables pointing downwards. All right, so grab your main Bargraph mount, and it's gonna pop in like this. And then on the bottom side, there's a little groove here. So you're gonna slide that in first, and that's gonna sit there. Next, grab one of the screws, and we're gonna install the top piece first. So that slots in there. And grab a second screw, and we're gonna do the same to the bottom here, and that slots into that peg over there. Okay, and when all is said and done, it should look something like this. Flip it over, take a look, see how it is. Yep, it's sitting flush with the body. You push down to test. It has a little bit of give, but it holds it very well. All right, now let's reinstall some of the components. So grab your extended barrel switch. This slides in here. Grab your Kung Lao hat looking screw. The ever so delicate slow glow LED. That slots in there around that post like that. That's how Hasbro did it. Okay. And then you got this piece. Reinstall that here. Hat. Reattach the spring. Hat. And then put the rear instrument box back on. I think that's what it's called. Screw. Screw. Oh, I almost forgot about the vent light. So this is the RGB GPStar vent light. With the terminal block and vent light, they come pre-closed already, these little doors, and they're already closed, so we need to open them. So take a flathead screwdriver and open them up, unscrewing to the left. And you just need to do 3 of these, you don't really need to do this last one here. That's labeled D out. We're just gonna use the first 3. All right, so let's start with the first one, which is your green wire. That should go under D12 on the right here. Give it a gentle tug, double check to make sure it's clamped down properly. Next, the black wire goes to ground. And finally, the red wire goes to VL positive. Okay, grab another screw. This one's gonna be a little bit more difficult to install as there's no point where it just kind of snaps in. There's a little peg right here, a little rectangular peg right there. And then that's gonna slot in between here. So once you have that lined up, there's a hole that screws into the peg. Tighten a bit. I'm just gonna hold it down, center it a bit. And yeah, there you go. That is nice and secure. You can angle a bit if you want to make sure it's in the middle. That's gonna be plenty bright. Watch your eyes. Okay, that's it for reels with the one body for now. Okay, which one should we do first? Okay, I think we're gonna install the Neutrona Barrel first. That one is easier. So put this one aside, put this one aside, and just focus on this. Okay, so you grab this barrel, and if you look closely, I hope I can capture this on camera. On the top and bottom side, you should see a very faint little dot. It's white. I know this whole thing's white. It sounds crazy, but can you guys see that right there? See that little dot? I'm just gonna flip this over, show you the other side as well. You see right there. Maybe it's not well on camera, but you should be able to see it in person. We're gonna need to access that hole. So what you do is just take, I don't know, something sharp. This little mini screwdriver works very well for me. I'm just gonna dig in. And make the hole just large enough. And you don't need to make it too big, but you want to make it big enough so that the little screw that's inside, can you see that? The silver? There's a little pin in here. We need to pop that out. Okay, I think that should be good enough. Let's flip it over and do the other side. Before I pop it out, I'm just going to clean off the edges a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna pop this out. So with the spring here facing this way, you're gonna push it down and in. And you want to push it from this end instead of the other because this end has a knurl end to it. And so pushing the other way will be a lot more difficult for the pin to slide through. So just go ahead and pull that out. And with that off, you can slide this off and then take off the clear diffusing part and then the foam. And now we gotta take off the old LED. So this is just glued in. So just up and over. And just gonna break that glue and try to remove as much glue as possible because we're gonna need to reuse the space. So you want that nice and clean. Mr. Heat Gun should make this a little easier. Don't go too long, just a little bit. Don't melt this piece. Oh yeah, much easier now. There you go, nice and clean. Okay, now grab your Neutrona Barrel and grab the wires here and go ahead and plug that in. And then before we install this, just a warning, you see these capacitors in the back, do be careful of these. They can snap off easily. And then make note of the hole, we will be putting a screw through there. So grab your Neutrona Barrel mount and you're just gonna slot it in like this from the front and up at an angle and then just seat it. Making sure that those capacitors aren't pushing up against anything. And if it's sitting flush, then you're good to go. And then take the tiny little M2.5 button head screw and then just start getting the threading going. It might be a little bit difficult at the beginning. After that, you'll need a small Allen key. And then while I'm applying a little bit of pressure on this side, holding it in, I'm just gonna go ahead and screw this in. Don't worry if it doesn't feel secure, even if it wobbles a bit. The most important thing is it doesn't pop off upwards. So with it lined up, just give it a little bit of an upward tug. And if they don't separate, that's all you need. Once we combine everything together, it will hold everything in place. So again, don't worry about it being a little wobbly or whatever. Okay, next, you're gonna grab this piece here and this second connector piece. And then that just snaps in place like that. Then take this connector piece and these snap together like so. Then you're just gonna run the wires through. Okay, and then when you get to this part here, the red wire is on the bottom, so I'm gonna start with that. You're just gonna circle around it to the outside. So come in through here and snap into the little groove here. Okay, and then I'm gonna take the second one and it's gonna go around the other side. And finally take the third one and you can pick whichever side you want. That will go around the same way. And when you're done, it should look something like this. Okay, so now when we get around to this part here, we can reuse these little snaps. We'll start with the red one. Okay, so these only fit about two, so the third one's just gonna sit on top. Except for the end here, you can snap the top one to the very last one there. All right, now you're gonna need to grab your handy hot glue gun And we're just going to drop some glue along those pegs there. And you just want to drop a very tiny amount. You don't need too much. You don't want this, you really want this to be gliding smoothly later, so you don't want it to bulk up and might interfere with the gliding process. So next, grab your handy hot glue gun. Just going to drop a tiny dab of glue along these pegs here. And you do want just a tiny bit. You don't want too much. We want to make sure this glides in and out smoothly, and the hot glue can interfere with that. So let's go start it just a little bit. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to drop a bit at the very end there. Okay, so obviously let it dry along the way. Clean it up a bit where you think it needs some cleaning. And then just grab this inner barrel and do a bit of a test to see how well it glides. Okay, that feels good to me, so I'm gonna leave that as it is. Next, you're gonna grab your foam piece and you're gonna line it up with just the barrel part where it meets the mount. And then you're just gonna cut off the excess. So you go like snip, like that. And then you can just insert this piece over top. Then grab the diffuser and insert that. And lastly, grab your final two piece and look for the little notch on the back. And that will line up with the notch right here. And before we completely close up, I'm just going to switch to the front and double check that this hole here is clear. Make sure the wire is not in the way. And that should just snap in. Okay, and then grab the little pin. And then with the non-neural side going in first, just stick that in. And then I'm just going to poke it in a little bit more to make sure that it's flush and not sticking out at all. Do one last test. Okay, and that's it. So let's put this aside for now. We'll get back to it later on. And let's move on to the hat light. All right, to install the hat light and push button on the barrel wing here, we're actually going to go through in 3 installation methods. Unfortunately, there isn't one sure, easy, fully clean method to go by. So I'm going to show you 3, and then you can decide on which one you prefer. So the first method, this is the method that I demonstrated in the first video. This is the method that I prefer. We're basically going to cut all of the bottom part of this out. Reason being is because if you're going for screen accurate, you're gonna cover this up with heat shrink tubing afterwards anyways, so it doesn't really matter how it looks back here. So I'm drawing out the rough area where we're gonna cut. You want to try to keep as much of this right side here as possible. So let's just stop right here for now and see if that's enough to go with. But first, we're going to need to take out this peg here, and by now, you already know the drill. And then if you have a Dremel, you can Dremel it. That will be the easiest way to cut this off. But just in case you don't, I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm just going to drill a couple of holes here. Actually 3 holes. And then I'm just going to snip in between them. Actually, I'm just keep drilling holes along this path. Looks like a war zone. Yeah, I know this is not pretty. If you got Dremel, much easier. Just do that. If you don't, it doesn't matter, honestly, though, if it's pretty or not, because like I said, we're covering this up anyways. All right, so now that we're in, you can easily access the parts that we no longer need. So here's the switch. Just go ahead and cut the wires. And then pull it from the other side. And then the hat light should just fall out. And then we're just gonna clean this up a bit now. All right, so it looks like I do need to snip off a little bit more. Try to maintain on this side here as much as you can. But as you see, we do need to go straight down into that hole for the push button. So we're gonna have to snip off just a tiny bit more. All right, let's see if we can work with this. You're gonna need your 1/4-inch drill bit again. And luckily there is already a hole there that we can use as a pilot hole. So you line that up and drill all the way straight through. There you go. It pops off. And then we can snip off the fake nut on the front here. Okay, I followed that. You can follow it down as well. Try to get it as flush as you can. And then grab your push button, take off the nut and that little spacer. If you find that the push button isn't quite fitting, just run your 1/4-inch drill bit again and just kind of push along the edges as you're drilling. That should widen it just enough for it to, yep, squeeze on through. Then last thing you need to do is just throw on the nut. And while you're holding in place from the back end, just twist it with some pliers. And now for the hat light, you're gonna take this insert here, and it's just gonna drop right in from the back. Perfect fit for the existing hole. No need to do any modifications. You can put a tiny bit of glue. You can glue that on. Squeezing them in to make sure they're sandwiched together. Next, grab the LED, drop it in, and once again, we're gonna drop a bit of hot glue in there. Okay, now once that's dry, don't put your drill away just yet. You're gonna need to drill a hole through the handle, well, right there. Oh, the drill bit I use is 5/16. That should be big enough. Okay, so we got a nice hole there to feed the wires through. All right, so go ahead and you can take your wires and feed them through. The last one's gonna be the trickiest. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we got all 4 wires neatly tucked in. And then now we need to get it out of this end. I'm just gonna pull on it and snip it off. Gonna push the rubber piece that's remaining in. Shake it about. All right, so now a bit tricky, but we need to get these wires out through this hole. The easiest method that I find is to get a piece of small thin string. I'm just gonna use the wire from the old push button. So I'm just going to put it through there. Grab it out from the other end and tie it to one of the ends of the wire. And then you just try to finesse it through. And then just repeat the process for each of the wires. Okay, and that's that. The installation of these wires through the handle here, this is also applies to method number 2. Okay, to install the heat shrink tubing, unfortunately, because we can't just simply slide it in due to the handle being molded to the wing barrel tip here, we're gonna have to cut off just a little bit. So, take some scissors and something like this should be fine. You don't need to go too high up. Let's see if that fits over. Oh, more than enough. I can probably trim this down. So yes, looks like that will fully encompass the barrel wing. So cut off a little bit more here because I have excess amount. Yeah, okay. I think that I'm happy with that. All right, so heat shrink tubing. Well, obviously they shrink. Once fully heated, this will shrink to about 1/3 of the size that you see here. And the one problem we have is because we cut this, these ends here are gonna peel inwards away like this. And whatever holes we cut are also gonna peel away. So you want to keep that in mind when you're installing this. So next step is, while you have this on, let's mark where the button and the hat light is, and then we're just going to snip the holes. Probably wasn't ideal to use a silver Sharpie, whoopsies. Give that a test. Okay, that looks okay. Okay, so some very important tips. When using the heat gun, like we mentioned earlier, you want to keep this moving. If you heat it up in one spot too long, you could warp the plastic. This hat light, it may not look like it's warping, but it can become brittle. It's made of resin and they can crack. And the most important one is this push button. You do not want to deform this button here. Otherwise, you'll get a situation like this, where it no longer pops back up on its own. So you know this looks okay. It is deformed just enough that it's not operating as intended. So there are some ways around that. You just grab like some paper or like a cardboard, and you're gonna cover it as you're doing your heating. What I'm probably gonna do is I'm gonna avoid this area as much as possible. I'm probably just gonna mostly heat up everything around it, and I'm probably not gonna really touch this area. Okay, so let's get started with the back side. There's a very important tip for this one too. Okay, as soon as you start seeing this curl and it feels quite soft, you're going to want to grab it and hold it down so that it is covering that spot. You don't want that to get away from you. After a bit, I'm going to heat up a little bit to make sure that that glue melts and sticks on. Okay, yeah, I don't want to heat up too much, but yeah, I feel like I can feel the glue soften. Okay, next, let's just do this outer edge. I'm trying to avoid the hat light as much as possible. So this part's being a little stubborn. Just as a precaution, I'm going to cover the hat light. At any point you're worried that you're heating it up too much, you can just wait until it cools and it's back off and give it a bit of a break, and then you can get back to it again afterwards. Okay, that back side got away from me, so I'm stretching it back on. Okay, I think I'm just going to need to do this bottom piece here, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to go at it too much. The button still works, thankfully. No, let's keep it that way. What do you say? Okay, I think I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm a little afraid to go into the middle here. I've done it before, but I don't want to mess with it too much. Most important thing is this button keeps working. Okay, and now for method number 2, you're gonna have to take out the screw, wedge this open, and pull out the switchboard inside. Snip it off, and then pull out the rest of the wire from the back here. And the hat light's not going to come out as easily, so we're going to have to just snip at it while it's loose inside, and then just pull out the pieces from the top here. Snip off the fake push button. And then with your 1/4 inch drill bit, we're just going to center it and drill all the way through. Then you can snip off the excess of the fake nut here. And then you take your 2564 drill bit, and we're gonna widen the backside even more. So I've already done it. I accidentally did this off camera, but this part gets a little tricky. At least it did for me. When I drilled in, the way it kind of grabbed onto the plastic, it wanted to keep going forward. And whenever I backed out like this, it wasn't a perfect circle like you see here. And then I tried to keep it in place while I drilled, but I lost control and it just went whoosh all the way forward and out the other end. And that poses an issue because when you put your push button in, it goes all the way to the other side. There's nothing holding it down. Big boo-boo. Oh my goodness. So if you're doing this method, try to go gentle and very slow with the back end. Don't do what I did and accidentally go all the way through. However, I do think this is salvageable. The little spacer that comes with the push button, it is slightly wider than the hole. So I'm going to try to drop that in there and see if it's enough to hold the push button in. And I'm going to drop this spacer into that area. I'm just going to line it up with the hole. And I'm just going to drop it in push button and see if it goes through. Okay. Yeah, and it looks like that is working. So we're just going to go ahead and put the nut on this side of things. Okay, and there we go. We were able to salvage it. Might be in a bit of an angle, but I'm happy that we're able to salvage a potential disaster. Let's put the screw back in. And then for the Hatlight, 2564 drill bit, we're just gonna go straight through. I'm just gonna go real slow this time. Okay, this time I did a much better job of holding it in place. I really gripped both of them in place as I drilled, and I should have did that with the push button instead of messing it up like I did. And then let's pry this open again. And drop in the insert piece for the Hatlight. And while holding it in on the back side with a tool, you can drop a bit of glue on here and pop in the Hatlight. After that, we'll repeat the same steps as method 1. You're going to drop in the LED, put some hot glue in, drill a hole through the handle, and feed the wires through and out this hole, just like we did in the first method. You can rewind the video to check how to do that again. Okay, method number 3. We are going to be splitting the barrel in half. So just pretend that these holes don't exist, pretend it's a brand new one. What we need to do is, in addition to this peg with the screw removed, we need to do it to this one here, and this one here as well. Okay, and then let's unscrew them. So next we need to remove this top ring here and this bottom ring here. They're glued on pretty well, but what you can do is take a heat gun and just go at it, not long at all, like just a few seconds here and there, and it should just pop right off like this. So I already did that to mine. It was really tight. I didn't put the heat gun on very long at all, and they came out so easily. And I'm gonna give a shout to Steve W in our Facebook community group. He's the one who suggested this method to me. Okay, and with that done, you can go ahead and just rip this barrel in half. The obvious benefits to this method is that you don't have to drill any holes in the bottom here. The only hole you need to drill is through the push button here, and that's it. You can maintain the bottom look. You can keep it looking like it's stock. The only issue is that this push button extends outwards beyond the wing barrel tip, but that's easy fix. All you need to do is just bend these legs outwards. Like so, and then that should fit inside. And then just follow the same method as method number 1 and 2. You just gotta pop on this Hatlight, put a bit of super glue, pop it on. I'm not gonna do that here. And grab your LED, drop some hot glue in there, and then these wires can just be run down along the inside body here. It of course helps to use a bit of tape. And then the rest will run up into the slot here where the hole is supposed to be. Snap the cover back in place. Make sure that the wires here are coming through the hole and not getting caught. And then that's it. Just need to pop the rings back on. Put the screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just gonna pretend this is back on. And then you should have a nice clean looking barrel wingtip No need for a heat shrink if you don't want to. Pretending these holes aren't here. The back one looks clean outside of the screw hole. So that is the one big benefit. Nice and easy, minimal drilling. But the obvious downside to it is that you're going to be left with these 4 screw holes here. The ones in the grip bother me the most personally. But one solution around this is you go online and you can find a 3D file of the replacement peg. And you get that 3D printed and you just pop those in there. And hopefully that will look like it looked like it did before. So that's method number 3. Okay guys, guess what? There's actually a 4th bonus method here that I came across after I finished filming. Big shout out to Mario R in our community group for reminding me of this technique. And big shout out to Mike R for the one who originally posted this technique. And what you need for this technique is just an X-Acto knife and a lighter or blowtorch if you have one. And from what I understand, it's a slow process, but a very clean and easy one. So you just need to heat up the blade and you're just gonna make a clean incision along the seams here. Oh yeah, look at that. That first incision, it just sunk right in and like as if you're cutting butter. But after that, it cooled down already. And so while this method looks like it would be the cleanest, you do have to have patience of constantly reheating your blade several times. As you can see in these reference photos posted by Mike R, you can just cut along the edges and it's a nice clean piece that you can break off and you can reapply it afterwards. So whichever method you choose, I'd be very curious to know what your thoughts are on these. So go ahead and post your thoughts in the comments after you finish the installation and let me know what you think. Okay, now that we're done with barrel, and congratulations by the way, I would say this is one of the harder mods to do, especially if you're doing the heat shrink method. So moving on, we're going to grab our wand body back and take these 4 wires, line them up, and you're going to feed them through this hole. And now from your Hatlight kit, you can grab these 2 wire housings, starting with the 2 blue wires. Order doesn't matter. With the little tab facing up, that's going to go insert to the back of the housing. Give it a bit of tug to make sure you insert it correctly. Okay, now let's do the same with this one. Tiny tab facing up. And that is nicely secure. Moving on to the LED, starting with the red one. The order matters for this. So this one is gonna, with the backside facing up this way, it's gonna insert into the right side of the back. If you're having a bit of trouble connecting it, like me, just lift up this tiny tab just a little bit. And then maybe push down on the housing. There we go. That is fine. And then the black one goes on the other side. Don't mix these 2 up. Make sure you get them correct. And these wires are going to run in between here, under the barrel. So leave that there for now. Now grab the rest of your barrel kit. So remember this guy here. You can slide that in there. The wire is going to be coming out from this little slot. So facing upwards. You're going to slide this in this way. Like that. Whoops, let's go this way. Facing this way like that. And then just slide it into the pole. There's plenty of wires for the Hatlight kit here, so you can give it as much slack as you want underneath. Just make sure that this sits on properly. And make sure the ring is also on. There you go. Grab the hat screw and re-secure this. And then you can leave the spring off for now. We'll get back to that later. And if the Hatlight wire is a little too long, you can just wrap it up in a bit of a knot. And now finally it's time to install the GPStar board. They're finally here. So the board comes with all these terminal doors pre-closed. So we're gonna need to open them all. So you're gonna need to unscrew Take your small flathead screwdriver and you're gonna have to unscrew them all by twisting to the left. And when you're inserting these wires, make sure you're clamping down on just the exposed part, not the sleeve here. Otherwise the connection won't be made and you're gonna have a lot of issues. And a second thing that you might come across is when you're screwing these up, you might run into a situation when the door just won't close for every reason. I'm not able to demonstrate because all these are working, but if you do run into that situation, all you need to do is take a small tool, like some tweezers, and you want to push the door upwards towards the top of the screw. And as you're doing that, you go ahead and screw the top here, and that will reestablish the connection between the screw and the door, and it should be fine from there on. Okay, so the first one will be these two orange wires. This is the barrel retraction switch, or it doesn't matter. So just stick that in and screw them on. Mine actually stopped working, so I'm using the replacement GPStar version instead, so don't be confused by these two wires. Next up is the slow blow LED. That is this black and red wire that comes from back here. Make sure you got the right one, as there are a few pairs of black and red wires here. So red goes into D8 and black goes into ground. Next is the lower toggle switch, which is these two brown wires. Order does not matter. And then the two red ones here is the upper toggle switch. Again, order does not matter. Okay, and then we have the clipper LED, which is these two over here. Okay, and to finish off this side of things, we need the rumble motor. So make sure you're grabbing the black and red wire here. If you look closely back here, that's where the rumble motor is. Just give this a tug and see if that moves to make sure you got the right one. So the red one goes in first in R positive, and then black goes into R negative. All right, so this side's all done. Let's give it a bit of a tug. Make sure that they're all connected. And double check. Is it clamped down on the exposed wire, or did you stick in too much and it's clamped down the sleeve? So you want to make sure that's all correct. Moving over to the other side, we're gonna grab our vent light. So we got the GPStar vent light here. There should be 3 wires. So I have a black, red, and green one. So we're gonna start off with black goes into ground, and then the green one goes into D12, and then the red one goes into VL positive. Okay, and last but not least, it is the rotary encoder. And that should be yellow, red, and brown. So the yellow goes in first, then the red, and then the brown or orange. I'm not sure what color it is. Okay, all done. Okay, once you've triple checked your connections and make sure it's all, give it a tug and everything's connected, we're gonna take our barrel cover here. We want all the wires on the inside in between these two legs. So we slide this right side in first underneath, and grab yourself a screw. You can use 2 if you like, but 1 should be enough. And just pick one side and screw it in. So the only wire you don't want to be underneath the barrel cover is the barrel LED. We'll leave this one out. Okay, next up, grab your wand cage, and this just goes up and over and sits in there like that. And then this just sits down nice and snug right in this little cavity here. Make sure that the feet aren't pushed down on any of these wires. Okay, so now we can start connecting. So take the first one here, this 4-pin. This is the activate and intensify switch, and that goes in here in the top right. Next, take the blue and yellow wire here, and this goes in here, TX1, RX1. And then this black and red one for the positive negative goes in just underneath it. All right, next up, so with all these other wires are on this side, we're gonna take them all. I'm gonna shove them up through the wand cage here. And next up, we're gonna work with the bar graph. So I already labeled which one is the power one. So with some black tape, you know it's the black. You know it's the power one when you give it a tug. And if you see right in there, where is it? Right here. If you see the bottom one moving, then that's how you know that's the power one. So you can see that moving. So you're gonna take your power wire, and this goes into the connector next to the terminal on the right side. And then take the serial connection wire, and that goes into the one right next to it. Next, we're gonna do the hat light. So this black and yellow one, this denotes the top of the wand body hat light. And that goes into hat number 2, right there. And then the barrel wing hat light, this red and black wire, goes into the one right next to it or above it. And then we have the blue one. This is the push button on the barrel wing. This goes all the way to the top right corner. And then the barrel LED, this one goes right across into this connector here. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. The wand is really fun to deal with. Okay, before we move on, let's go ahead and load up the SD card with the sound files. I'm going to go ahead and assume you know how to do this because you've already watched the pack install video. So just go ahead and do that. Okay, and now we are going to install the GPStar audio board. So grab your SD card and pop that into the SD card slot. And also make sure that this switch here is set to boot. And then you grab this wire. I'm just going to plug that in for now. It's going to end up something like this. Okay, so yeah. Okay, and then grab the 2 wires from your speaker. Yours is probably going to be yellow if you're using the stock speaker. And open up your terminals like we did with the Neutrona wand board. And I do not believe polarity matters for this one. And I know that the wires are pretty short, which is a bit annoying. So go ahead and plug those in. And we're going to lift up the wand cage. And this is going to actually sit in between the slot. Right here. There's a little groove there. You can put these wires through there. Okay, and then this goes up in between the 2 posts here. And then this auxiliary port here is going to sit right into that little spot. And it's going to go in like that. These corners are going to attach to the corner post there. And then this one's going to attach to that corner post there. There we go. And then we're going to plug this wire into the gray slot right there. And then tuck everything away nicely. Make sure that you want this area to be clear for the barrel to go back and forth. You don't want any wires to get caught. Okay, we'll do another barrel test. Okay, that looks like it's nice and clear. So we're good to go. Okay, and now is a good time to stop and test this out. So I'm just gonna put the lid back on, but I'm not gonna fully close this back up just yet. I don't care if it's not fitting properly right now. I'm just gonna hold everything together. I'm gonna hop over to my pack, I'm gonna plug it in, and I'm gonna make sure that everything's running. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, before we test it out, we want to make sure that the firmware that you're on matches the one in your pack. So if you recently update your pack firmware, you're going to want to make sure that the wand one matches as well. So we're going to need to connect to the Wi-Fi board here first. So I have my wand connector already, so there's power going to the wand. And ideally, the wand Wi-Fi shows up in your Wi-Fi searches. But if it doesn't, we're going to need to enable it. So to do that, we got to go into the menu system by pressing the push button there, and then we're going to scroll down to level 3 menu.
Level 2. Level 3.
Level 3, and then you'll know you're on level 3 when the vent light turns on. And we're going to leave it at the 5th bar, and then we're going to hit intensify.
Neutrona 1 Wi-Fi enabled.
There you go. It's enabled. And we're just going to scroll all the way back
Level 1.
and hit this button. And now we're out of settings. So let's go on our PC and update the firmware. And now when we head back to our Wi-Fi, you should see GPStar 1.2. We'll go ahead and connect to that. Okay, once that's connected, we are going to go to GPStar_1.2.logo. And now that we're connected, we can hit the right tab, update Neutrona 1 firmware, click select file, and then select your Neutrona 1 firmware. Okay, and once you're done with the one firmware update and calibration,
Level 2,
go ahead and disable the Wi-Fi so we don't waste your batteries.
Neutrona 1 Wi-Fi disabled.
Disabled, all good. Now you're done with this. Let's move on. Okay, and let's test out all the wand features. Okay, turns on, Bargraph's good. That light is good. Vent light is good. That light is good. Okay, let's fire. That light looks good. Push button looks good. Okay, this one works as well. My wand is in GB2 mode right now, so that's why it's not lighting up, but just take my word for it. So yeah, everything looks good. So let's take this back over to my desk and close it up. Okay, now that we've tested it out and everything's working fine, two more things I want to go through. The first one is a mod that's not done by GPStar, but is a mod that I personally really like. It's created by a gentleman in our community called Tomohiro, aka Rad is Lab. If you head over to his Etsy page, you're going to be able to download his digital files for the tube that goes right here. And this mod allows you to access your SD card without having to open up your wand again, because as you know, we do a lot of updates, and sometimes you have to update the sound files on your card. And the great thing about this mod now is before there was this extra slot here to put a programming cable through to allow you to update the firmware on the Neutrona wand board without having to open your wand. But as you know, within this new GPStar 2 wand board, it has Wi-Fi built in, so you can update it over Wi-Fi and you don't have to plug into your computer. So we can ignore this spot and saves us a lot more of this valuable space in here without extra cables. So for this mod, just have to get this SD card extender. But all you have to do is slide the cable in. This thing just snaps in, and you like I did, I put a little bit of glue just to keep it secure. And then this goes in here, and then this just pops into the SD card spot. Here's some solutions if you're having problems keeping this extender connected to that slot. For some reason, some of these either is disconnected, that's very sensitive and delicate in production, or it's this piece, I'm not sure. But you might have a situation where for a reason it just won't click in. All right, that's okay, because now I can demonstrate on how to get around fixing that. You're gonna need some sandpaper, and we're gonna sand down the front here just a little bit. You don't want to go too far in and damage these connectors. Just a little bit should be enough. Okay, let's test this out. Okay, and there you go. I sanded it down just a little bit. I pushed it really hard all the way, and now it seems to click in. Another option is while holding it in place, just drop a dab of hot glue on. Okay, now that we got that test out of the way, we're gonna have to remove this piece. There may or may not just be a tiny bit of glue right in the middle there holding it down, but all you have to do is just yank it out as hard as you can. Give it a bit of wiggle if you need to. Okay, and then once you're done there, this just slides right in here. And then when you need to, just open this, pop in your SD card, close it, push down, and you're good to go. Just put your lid back on and screw it tight. Easy peasy. Okay, and for the second optional add-on, This is an infrared sensor from GPStar, and it works exclusively with the GPStar 2 kit. And the installation of this is pretty simple. So let's go ahead and plug in this connector. This is going to go into the bottom tray, and it's going to slot in right there. So that means we're going to have to drill a hole right through here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and then this just drops in here, and it's a pretty tight fit, so I don't think you would need any glue or anything. So I was actually off-centered by a little bit. You can probably go a little bit more to the right. And now this plug, move this aside. This plugs into the last connector right there, the 3-pin connector next to the terminal blocks. Okay, and that's it. Let's go ahead and close this bad boy up. One thing you need to make sure is these 4 posts. Make sure they're all clear of wires. You don't want to accidentally pinch a wire while trying to put this back on. Okay, just kind of do a squeeze check to see if things can sit flush without too much pressure. Make sure all sides are able to close up quite easily. Okay, and let's drop the screws back in. So 3 of these normal ones, 2, 3, and then 1 long one that goes here. When you are tightening these, make sure that you do not over tighten. As soon as you start to feel that it's got a bit of friction, just go ahead and back off. You don't want to over tighten these because you will end up stripping the plastic if you do it too often, especially if you're going in and out of the wand many times. You have the potential of stripping those screws, and I have done that myself. Okay, let's check it out. Looks good. Looks good. Test out the barrel. Looks like nothing's catching, so the barrel's good. You might want to put a bit more glue on here when you're putting your mirror tip back on, so it doesn't pop off when the barrel extends. Okay, so to calibrate the wand. Okay, so first thing we do is go over to the right tab, and we need to go to Special Device Settings. Okay, and this part is very important. So it says components down, USB front. This is what you want if you have a Hasbro wand. Depending which one you use, it really depends. So if you're using, for example, a Max Factory wand, it would be components left and USB front. So I'm using Hasbro wand, so I'm using components down, USB front. Okay, so that is fine. So you can save it if you need to. And then we're going to go to the third tab, Gyro Calibration. And before you do that, you want to make sure your wand is laying as flat as possible. So I haven't installed my gun track here yet. So that should be flat and level to the surface. And then I'm just going to hit Gyro Calibration, hit OK. And we're just going to wait for the countdown. So it's going to be 30 seconds. Okay, and once that's all done, then we're good to go on that aspect. The next thing to do is the magnetic calibration. For this one, it's going to be a little bit more hands-on. So we're going to hit Start Calibration, hit OK. And what you're going to need to do here, so we're going to raise and lower our wand while rotating it 360 degrees. And we want our coverage density to get to at least 60%. Okay, so I reached 60%. Just keep going a little longer, see how much I can go before I decide to stop. So you're basically just pretend you're Harry Potter with a wand. Was it again? Abracadabra? No, that's not it. Excelsior! No, that's Marvel. Okay, so I've reached 73%, and I think I'm finished looking like a weirdo. I'm just gonna be satisfied with that, and I'm gonna hit stop. Hit OK. Stop calibration. Yes, I do. And then that's it. You're all done. And the last thing you need to do, take the gun track and snip off the ends of this triangle, this cone. Put that back on. Dropping your screws. Do not over tighten once again. Now grab some electrical tape and we're gonna have to tape up these wires. All right, now to the final step. Grab this Bargraph cover, rip off the back side. Okay, and line it up before you push down. Okay, and then just hold it down to make sure the glue sticks. And then when you're satisfied, you can peel off the front cover. Okay, and that is it. Congratulations, guys, for making it this far. It's not an easy kit to install, especially this wand part. And if you stuck through and made this far, you did a very good job. So congrats again. And so the only thing remaining is bust some ghosts.